everybody. Welcome to another episode of Toy Guys Talking, and it's my great pleasure to have Chris on the show from Full Force!
Full Force! That's what my face looks like when I say that every time. Yeah. How's it go? Thanks for having me on, man.
Oh, man. Very, very happy to have you on. Thanks for donating your time, your precious time, to chat to G.I. Joe and a whole bunch of other toy-related stuff.
Anytime, man.
I was actually listening to Full Force last night on Stitcher.
Sorry.
And you're talking about GoBots. What's that?
I was just apologizing for you having to listen to it.
No, man, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. You got the gift of gab. You got a really nice voice for it. And you're talking about GoBots on it. So do you not mostly do G.I. Joe on Full Force?
Okay, so when we first started, which was almost 6 years ago, nice, I like that. It was almost 6 years ago. I've got my Baron Ironblood mug.
I've been taught the proper form by a true Englishman.
There we go.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You like that?
Yeah.
That's my wife made this,
really?
Kate. Yeah, Kate the Potter. That she's got two more left actually that are on sale, and yeah, they're amazing.
Where can people get those?
K8 the Potter, K8 THEPOTTER on like most of her things, and yeah, you should be able to find her Etsy page. It's amazing, so check that out. But anyway, sorry, shameless plug.
Snake Eyes' visor on there.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I'll tell her. Yeah, so like just under 6 years ago, we're coming up to our 6th birthday in June. We started the show, and obviously the main focus was Action Force, aka the UK version of G.I. Joe, and we started doing things like SAS Force, Eagle, Blades and Hawk, and all the kind of like a Real American Hero repaint type figures, and we were covering that kind of stuff, but we were also doing news, and we were breaking up into segments very early on, and yeah, we basically got to the point where we got to like series 4, I believe it was, and then the Combined Universe kicked off. So with the Combined Universe, with like, the IDW one with Transformers and Micronauts and ROM and Visionaries and Mask and everything else they could just grab hold of off the shelf and throw in there. Exactly, yeah. Gem, yeah, all that. And we started doing these kind of like, what it was going to be like just, a few episodes, Action Man, a couple of Action Man episodes, one to cover the kind of early, stuff, and then the 90s rebrand and so on and so forth. And then we were doing ROM and Micronauts, Mask, Transformers, Visionaries. Now, fun fact, the Transformers, the Visionaries episode was almost, I think, close to 9.5 hours long, right? Oh. Apologies to everyone who had to put up with that.
I get it, though, because Visionaries, as short as the line was, it is just something I can talk about forever. I'm working on the History of Visionaries 1988 edition, and it's going to be a half hour long.
It's a beautiful line as well. Like we had two friends of mine on, Steve and Dave Mapes, who are twins, massive in the Transformers community, even bigger in the Visionaries community. They seem to be the only. I mean, there are a lot of people that are in the Visionaries community. It's very small, but they have got so much cool stuff. So we did a From the Vault segment with them, and it went on for close to 2-3 hours, I think. Easy. All of the Series 2 stuff. They've got things like 2-ups of the weapons from the Series 2 unreleased and artwork from the Series 2 unreleased. And it's just mind-blowing. So we went nuts on Visionaries. We loved that. The Transformers episode, we had the Mapes on again. Never get the Mapes on your show because it will just go on forever. That broke, I think, close to 10 hours, possibly more. I know, I didn't even break up into 2 parts, and people were complaining that the episode was too long, and I was like, well, you don't have to listen to it in one go, exactly.
So thanks for joining me. Hope you had fun. Everybody have a great night. We're going to keep this brisk. Hey, if they want short.
So we did the crossover stuff, and then this last series has just been about what I've termed the alternative Combined Universe, and that's things that Hasbro have got that own or that are kind of linked to G.I. Joe in some way, shape or form. So GoBots obviously having that link to Transformers and 6 Degrees of Separation. We started doing Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat. They were the first 2 episodes of the recent series or season. as the Americans like to call it. And that was like, G.I. Joe, Street Fighter, and G.I. Joe Mortal Kombat links are really strong there.
Yeah.
But then we also did stuff like Jurassic Park, which has links to G.I. Joe quite, and we kind of mixed in Dino Hunters in there too, because we just love the fact that set exists. And my God, I wish that had been kind of developed even more. I wish we got more Dino Hunters stuff, but that's just me
flipping through the Art of G.I. Joe by 3D Joes, and
beautiful.
Beautiful set, and I was going through the volume with the Dino Hunters, so I'm looking at Neon. Oh, this looks like a great figure, and there are a couple figures in there that harken back to the first couple of years, and more, and then I flip the page and I see a dinosaur. I'm like, what? Yeah. What? I've been complaining about space and neon and eco war, and here's a dinosaur.
Not just that.
Maybe I'll go back to the neon.
Not just that. Possibly the worst toy dinosaur ever and considering Hasbro at the time even probably had the Jurassic Park license, they had molds to do some sort of amazing T-Rex combo,
Were they not allowed?
Possibly. I don't know what red
even though they're doing all the toys, I mean, Jurassic Park, the movie company, is not going to look too kindly on their molds being reused. I thought I was going to talk to you about G.I. Joe for this entire thing, but you brought up Visionaries, and I want to ask you about that.
Go for it.
I haven't read that IDW Visionaries thing yet.
Yep.
Did they get their own dedicated comic, or did they just show up as a cameo in this crossover?
So it was more, I suppose you could say it was more Visionaries than it was Transformers. So Magdalene Visaggio wrote it, and Fico Ocio did a lot of the art, I believe. And I was into it. Like I thought it was a cool, like, modern upgrade of like the designs and stuff like that. I thought kind of, I wish I'd been able to see the 80s styling, in a modern setting. That would be really cool. And we actually spoke on the last recording, Battle Beasts, which isn't out yet, but that's another one that's connected to Transformers. So that's going to be, I think that's possibly going to be, we might do one more alternative combined universe episode, and then it's back to Action Force and G.I. Joe. So don't worry, guys, we're getting back there. It's just, for my OCD, I have to finish what I start, and unfortunately it takes ages to do.
Absolutely.
But with the Visionaries comic, I would have loved to see someone like, actually not love to see, but we were discussing the possibility of maybe Tom Scioli doing something like a Visionaries thing, because that might work with his quirky styling. Failing that, I would love to see just like I don't know, not necessarily straight out of the cartoon, but something of that old school styling brought into, now kind of thing.
So in the comic, was it a reboot? Was it on Prismos again?
Prismos was there was a lot to kind of unpack here, but because it actually hit the tail end of the combined universe. So at the end, more or less, of, I believe, First Strike, I could be wrong, it could have been another one at the end of that we kind of merge into Visionaries versus Transformers, where one of the characters, I won't give too much away, but one of the characters in the combined universe turns out to be Merklin.
Oh.
And then the whole
Alpha
thing that
Trion?
No. I think it's actually, it's I do remember, I'm not going to say it, but it's actually related more to G.I. Joe.
Oh.
So
Bazooka.
So basically, that would be... Who would be a good... Dr. Mindbender would have been a good reveal, because Merklin is actually bald in the new version. So he's like this kind of very kind of thin, scrawny type, futuristic looking... there's it's kind of weird and kooky.
Reimagined.
I think a lot of Visionaries fans didn't really vibe with it, and that's totally understandable, because we've been, as a Visionaries fan, and I know that this is the feeling, we've been waiting around for like 30 something years for anything Visionaries.
A Funko Pop. That's
exactly
what we waited for.
And we get Leoric as a what was it, a Mighty Mug, wasn't it?
Yeah,
we get him as a Mighty Mug. And I'm like, okay, that's cute and everything, but then we do get the Leoric figure, which is actually pretty bad. I'm not allowed to swear on this, am I?
It's kid friendly. But there are fun bleeps I can put in there. It is bad bottom. But the Mighty Mug is a total Merklin move. I mean, that was one of the strangest things about the cartoon, is that in an age, the 80s, of good versus evil, here you had good versus evil. You had the Spectral Knights, Darkland Lords, and then you had that middle character who I thought would be like Zodak from He-Man, the balance keeper. Merklin's no balance keeper. He's a D-bag. He's a complete D-bag.
He has his own agenda, but you never quite know what it is, other than him just wanting to mess with them or show his power. Or it's a funny one, and I think the following series or season would have developed that character more or given us more explanation, but we never got it, did we? We only got 13 episodes.
Yeah. Did you ever read the comic?
I read the
issue run.
Yeah, I read the 6-issue run, and we had a Marvel UK Visionaries comic as well, which was pretty fun too, yeah.
Oh, how long did that one go?
Not very long. Maybe, I can't remember off the top of my head, it was not a very long run.
Because I've been
probably about the same.
I've been going through that six issue, I think it was, original series, and the first issue is just a retread of the first episode. But then the rest of them are all original stories, so for someone who's been starving for 30 years for more Visionaries, you can check out that Visionaries comic, and it's not available anywhere. I don't think they've reprinted it, but Google is your friend. It's not that hard to find anything these days on Google. So
I had to get that Visionaries run. I had to get as soon as we finished that episode. I ended up going straight on eBay, I think, and I was just like, I need to find these big time. And actually, no, I tell a lie. It was mycomicshop.com. Who are brilliant when it comes to some really old vintage comics, including Action Force. I was like, you have Action Force weekly and monthly on mycomicshop.com, and I believe it's an American site as well.
So they're selling the actual paper comics?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't even think that was an option anymore, so definitely check that out first. But we're luckily in the age of, if you can't physically...
The age of magic.
Yeah, the age of magic. I just hope the three suns don't align, because can you imagine what would happen? You wake up one morning and there was a show on a couple of years ago. Was it called Revolution, where all technology just stopped?
I don't recall that.
I forget what it was named, but when I saw it, and my wife said, "Hey, there's this new show. It's interesting. All technology just stops, and they have to use bow and arrows and swords and stuff." And I'm like, do they use magic? So I don't know if they ever got into magic in that show. We stopped watching after a couple episodes because it just wasn't magical enough.
Yeah.
But that concept...
There weren't sky claws flying around and like...
But that concept, I just absolutely loved it. That whole idea of, it's catastrophic. We've lost all our technology, but we got magic. So it's like, hey, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. That's so cool.
I just love the designs on that, though. Those original Visionaries, like Whittaquick was just, well, like I remember seeing him for the first time and just falling in love. I just thought he was the most amazing character. Like the figure, the amazing, like, I suppose, cartoon model as well of him. Using the animation, and that scene where he runs through the clothes and things, and everyone's just scared, and he's like, "No, don't run away, and go. Let's head straight forward." And just runs straight through, and just I know there's a bit of repetition in the animation. It was like going like the Flintstones thing, but still, I love the fact that that's coming down, and he's like just gunning it through. Yeah. I thought it was brilliant.
And the toys, the holograms.
Exceptional.
Still to this day, it's one of those things. It's kind of like looking at the first year of Transformers. When I transform Optimus Prime, the G1, I still look at it and go, how did they do this in not even 84? They designed him a couple years before that. He came out in Japan.
Made him in wood, didn't they? Like initially, to get the kind of transformation and stuff, like the Takara designers.
But the engineering is just to look that good in truck mode, and then in robot mode to be that still playable.
I mean, big time.
So same thing with the Visionaries. I look at the holograms and I go, how do they do
magic?
That?
It's actual magic.
Yeah. Apparently extremely expensive at the time, because I remember never owning any of them, and it was the cost, because they're right beside them on the shelves were G.I. Joes. They were just a tiny bit shorter, but the price was night and day.
Yeah.
And I like them, the Visionaries, but I couldn't afford it. And plus, when you have cartoon after cartoon with 65 episodes, and then sometimes even a second season of 65 episodes, and then you're given something with 13, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a good start. Where's the rest?
Yeah.
No more. That's it. We're canceled. It's kind of like, and we shouldn't judge things based on box office, but it's like a lot of people judge a movie on its box office. They go to mojo.com and they go, oh, it bombed. I'm not going to see it. It's a loser. I don't want to be associated with a loser.
Yeah.
I think that's what hurt Visionaries and Inhumanoids, because 13 episodes, they tanked, and then people were like, we don't want to be associated with losers. Luckily, years and years later, like, the cream always rises to the top. Always. And, you know, when these toy channels cover, I don't know, what are some of the crappier toy lines of the 80s? Like, and I don't want to upset anybody who loves Another World, or is that what it was called? Something like that. But I remember seeing those things.
I'm very forgiving when it comes to 80s properties. Like I feel the nostalgia's too much for me sometimes. Yeah. But there were some that were like a little bit hit and miss. Like Supernaturals was one. Like, it was cool.
The holograms were amazing, but
I didn't really get the vehicles.
There's
and
no
stuff.
Magic. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a bit odd, I think, for me.
It was like Visionaries meets Mad Max, that one, Supernaturals. But whenever these toy channels cover Visionaries, Inhumanoids, Centurions, people, I think they lean a little closer and go, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
Like, if they remember it, something gets jogged in their memory and go, I haven't thought about that for 35 years. Holy smokes, Ace McCloud.
Big time.
Or if they don't know anything about it, they go, wow. And even though it's 30, 35 years old, they go, like, that is cool by today's standards. Yeah. So I think Visionaries, if they would, I'm always saying this about everything, though, if they would remain true to the spirit. But what I've found over the last couple of years, reboot after reboot, sitting there, and I'm so excited, and then, oh, something doesn't feel right, and then so excited, and it's not the property, it's the times.
I wouldn't mind so much if the newer version of that said property that's being rebooted caught fire with a new audience, but it never really seems to do so, does it? Like, you know, if say, you know, they brought back Visionaries in that sense and people went nuts over it, and there was a new younger audience, or maybe even just new people that hadn't really read it or enjoyed it, if that had caught fire and been the new main and they did a cartoon for it and everything, I'd have been fine with that. And also that does open the door for, then I call it the kind of masterpiece effect, where you have Transformers movies that I don't care for, like the first one I loved, but the rest, you know, and there were still issues with it, but the rest of them were just like absolute garbage for me, like as you know, personally. So, but I didn't mind that they existed at the same time, because they made billions of dollars so that we got our masterpiece toys. You know what I mean?
Those Bay movies were basically like a crappy job that you do to pay for all of the cool toys that you buy. That's how I've always looked at the Bay movies. So I know they have plenty of their haters, and maybe to just step away from the Michael Bay thing for a moment, because people do get very emotionally charged about this. I like to use this other example because people aren't as emotionally charged. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Crystal Skull.
What a crappy job. But that brought in a lot of money to buy a lot of cool indie toys. So that, I didn't like the movie, but there was almost no indie stuff available. There were a couple Disney exclusives. There was the stuff from back in the 80s. Who can afford that stuff? Yeah. But when Crystal Skull came out, not only was there Crystal Skull merch, there was new Raiders merch. There was Temple of Doom merch. There was a Blu-ray set. Finally, those movies came out on Blu-ray. And
then the G.I. Joe Club used some of the Indiana Jones parts for figures as well. So
what do you think of the club now that they've?
All right, so I was never like a club hater. I was always very much. I liked a lot of the product that was created over the years. I feel like the last, like as it kind of wound down, there was definitely like a feeling of the price has gone way up and the quality's didn't gone way down, and I was super happy for personal reasons that they managed to complete the Euro exclusive Tiger Force for the final 12. Like, I was super happy about that, because it was a homage that I just, again, I'm very close to. But some of the things there was so many things about each figure that I would have changed, or there could have been better uses of parts. There could have been better things all over the place. But what I found was we were paying so much more for what effectively wasn't really anything other than repaints. Yeah. And that's what kind of upset me a little bit. And before that, I was a JoeCon attendee for a number of years. My first one was in Dallas, followed by Springfield, was it? Dallas, Springfield.
How appropriate is that, Springfield in GI?
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to Springfield.
So basically everyone from Dallas onwards I did, and that was a kind of, I loved the shows. I really enjoyed the people. I met a lot of friends there. I met my wife there. Yeah, amazing.
Joe fans are, not to rate. I don't like to rate things. My top 5 lists are in no particular order, but Joe fans are wonderful, absolutely amazing. Some of the best, pop culture fans that I've ever encountered. They're just in a
lot of passion, a lot of
all to themselves.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it kind of says a lot when I've just recorded with G.I. Joe Berg. Like, we've just done another FSS card art battle prior to coming on here. Yeah, I'm talking to you
great
now.
Bunch of guys. I did some G.I. Joe commentaries with them years ago, and they really know how to have fun with their toys and actually play with them. Can you believe those guys took a flag out to the...
Blazing Sandman has been unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Of course they would do that.
They're the only ones that would do that. They're the only ones that could do it.
And mark my words, they'll take it out deep next time.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't the end. They've only gotten a taste of this now, and next time they're going to take a boat out and go out into the middle of nowhere. It'll be
get Rob in his wetsuit. Yeah, drop him in.
Yep, they're going to be like way, way out there and being attacked by sharks and whales and stuff. But they want to do it.
Well, I mean, that's like testament to this community. Guys in Johannesburg and Stephen's in Australia right now, and Cujo's on the west coast of the States, and I'm talking to you now, and we're having this conversation, and I've just done a recording with the Full Force with Paddy and Brian in Ireland, and Eric and Andrew on the east coast of the States at Boss Fight, Adam Riches and Justin Bell, and it's just a really cool community and they all jump on, and they're all experts. They're all really good in the field of knowledge, but they have fun with it. And it's just an amazing experience with these amazing fans.
I think one of the reasons why Joe fans tend to, and I don't like to group anybody all together, like guys do this or girls do this. Joe fans do this. It's not everybody, obviously, but so many people that I've encountered, Joe fans, they seem to really enjoy the hobby. They have a smile on their face when they talk about Joe and look at their Joe stuff and play with their Joe stuff. I wonder if that is because both of the G.I. Joe media that we had available to us in the 80s, both the cartoon and the comic, and we know Larry Hama never watched the cartoon. He's like, I'm doing my own thing. But the weird thing is, his own thing was so similar to what the cartoon guys were doing. It was both soldiers. Like, Larry is a former soldier, so he breathed that soldier mentality into his G.I. Joe universe. And then over on the other side of it, I don't know about some of the other writers, but I know Buzz Dixon served. And so he brought some of that genuine military, bravado, but also that I always describe it as that lopsided grin that Flint has on his file card. It's never too serious. So stuff like Transformers had a melancholiness to it. We've been fighting for millions of years. It's so depressing when you think about it. It's not woohoo fun. G.I. Joe was like, they're saving people, they're fighting terrorists, but it was all with a twinkle in their eye and a lopsided grin.
Exactly.
That's what G.I. Joe was all about.
cloning and, you know, ridiculous germ monsters and just all the craziest things you can think of. And pyramids
Fluffies?
of darkness. And
what were those fluffies in space? The
fatal fluffies. Yeah.
Zartan, the light.
Exactly.
Why? I don't know. Gumbo. Gung-ho. It's nonstop fun, even though these guys are soldiers. And that's the really silly thing to me, is when people would get on G.I. Joe, and that's, I guess, why they try to move away from the military aspect of it. Military bad. But Joe was never all about military. Like, it was about this kind of fun, being able to have fun while you fulfill your duty, you know, your sense of duty. So, you know, they, in the 90s especially, they try to move away from the military army aspect of it. They even try to do the police stuff, and then Hasbro even tried to do cops, and that wasn't that big a hit. I guess people just didn't want, you know, law enforcement, military characters anymore for their entertainment and stuff. But all of the people who grew up on it loved it. I think it really instilled something in them, in that you can have fun with your G.I. Joe collectibles, with your comics, with your cartoons, but you can also have fun with your crappy job that you do to pay for all this stuff. You can have fun with your crappy whoever, your crappy neighbor, your crappy coworkers. Like, you can deal with the worst of the worst. You can deal with some crappy toy fans from other things, from other media, with a twinkle in your eye and a lopsided grin. So that's how I've always tried to deal with whenever people bring up, did you hear about this? And did you hear about this spat and this drama and this conflict? And I just remember twinkle in the eye and a lopsided grin, and I go, I don't know. I heard.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I've never really been a fan of in the community is the kind of drama that gets kind of dragged into it. And
the funny thing is about Joe, that there's no drama. When you think of it, there is, they try, you know, the conflict and stuff, but there's always some glib comment that just dissipates the tension. You know?
Yeah, big time.
It never feels melancholy like in some of the
Worlds Without End was probably the lowest point for the Sunbow cartoon in terms of that attitude. But still, like, you know, you've got Footloose starting the Ore Striker and driving up to them and going, "Where to, sports?" and just things like that. Oh my God, they've changed the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial and all that kind of stuff, and it was all really outlandishly crazy stuff. You know, dreadnoughts in police uniforms and things like that.
The corpses of the Joes.
Oh well, that's the other side of it, isn't it? The really dark side of it.
Yeah, I remember watching that as a kid and going, they've really crossed the line here. They've done something that is not in keeping with Joe. What I didn't realize is they were doing 2019 G.I. Joe. They had jumped. Exactly. They had not only jumped to another dimension, they had jumped forward in time.
To the future.
I talked a little bit with Joe fan Ben on a previous Toy Guys Talking. And he said the word is grounded. That's the word that they all want to use whenever they reboot this stuff. We're going to bring it back, but it's going to be grounded.
Yeah.
What they don't realize is they're throttling the life and the fun and the magic out of things by grounding it.
No, I agree. I think there's a big push to, you know, make it like true military, like G.I. Joe has to be like,
and it never was.
Kind of hardcore and dark and almost like Call of Duty based style video games and things like that. And I don't see the point when you have Call of Duty as a video game and when you have other things that kind of fill that niche. You have lots of stuff that covers the actual military angle, including the actual military. I'm the same. Like, I don't really see G.I. Joe necessarily as, it's not serious. It's bonkers. Like,
it is.
If anyone's like, and it's funny, this coming from me, from the UK, I grew up with Battle Action Force and then the Action Force Weekly and Action Force Monthly, which became European Missions. And those comics, so specifically Battle Action Force, were super violent, they were very military grounded. Everything was like pretty much on point as you would expect a British military comic to be of that time. And it didn't really relax in its violence going into Action Force Weekly. So I've grown up with it being the grown-up version of G.I. Joe, and then seeing G.I. Joe and watching the cartoon, which again we only had about 20 episodes on VHS ever released in the UK, ranging from Worlds Without End to the movie to Arise Serpento Arise, Pyramid of the Darkness, Oda Cobra, so on and so forth. We had quite a few, but most of them
ideas that they had. Oda Cobra,
crazy, right? And so like even growing up with that, I don't see G.I. Joe, I don't see Action Force or G.I. Joe as something very serious, you know?
No, not at all.
But, yeah.
When you were watching Action Force, so you didn't have the American version playing there?
No,
States?
we had the dubbed VHS version, which they only would overdub in American accents or trying to copy the accents of the character.
Yeah.
I only dubbed the small parts like, okay, so the main ones are Yojo became Full Force, and in some cases Yo Force, and in some cases Go Force, which was done once.
Did they ever do Schmo Force?
No, although I've been trawling through the recordings trying to find that, but I haven't found it yet. And then every time G.I. Joe's mentioned, they, you know, like the Joes, or it would be the Force, or this is as far as you go, Action Force, and things like that. You know, that's what you'd get instead of the Joe references. But they would also try to take or minimize the American references out of as much of it as possible. And also things like bum was removed, because there's one scene where Shipwreck, I think it is getting angry. He's at the premiere of the G.I. Joe story movie at the end of the episode, and the director gets out the car and he's saying things like, and I couldn't have done it without my parents, I think, or wife, something like that. And Shipwreck's angry because he thought they were going to mention the Action Force. Yeah. And he starts getting angry and they're holding him back, and Junkyard's grabbing his, like, you know, his jacket to stop him from attacking the guy. Not that Junkyard. That's my dog, Phoebe. Good timing, though.
That's the Action Force version.
That's the overdub right there.
They dubbed him to be a little sweeter.
Yeah. And he says, I'll murderize you, you bum. Yeah. And they overdubbed it to, I'll murderize you, you jerk. And I thought, well, jerk isn't an English term, that's an American term as well. Right. So it was weird that they overdubbed that. But anyway, yeah, so we got loads of different overdubs, loads of different bits and pieces on the episodes, and it makes for quite a fun jaunt through these episodes. And I've been posting up videos on our Facebook page if anyone wants to check them out, and they're like overdub videos, and they'll be relating to whatever the day is. So we had a Valentine's Day one, and we had, you know, that kind of stuff, you know, I forget now. Siblings Day was one the other day.
So they would do a line here and there. It wasn't the entire episode. So
not the entire episode.
So you would still have the Sunbow voice cast, and then occasionally they drop out, and some other guy
would try and copy it. And some of it's hilarious, like Cobra Commander, Destro, Zartan. No, they can't. They couldn't do it. I'm desperate to try and find out who the actor was, because I've got a feeling it was only a small group of people that were overdubbing it, but I haven't been able to find out who that is. I don't think it's known necessarily. I mean, it might be known to someone out there, but I don't think it's known in the community.
Can you imagine if it was someone who went on to do something big, like Daniel Craig?
Man,
Pierce Brosnan.
Could you imagine?
Patrick Stewart.
Get him on for an interview, no problem.
Ian McKellen.
Just want to talk about your Action Force overdub career. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? I went into a room and I read some lines. I didn't even know what it was for.
I thought that was for a toilet commercial.
Yeah, I was like, so we got a lot of those kind of VHS dubs. I've got every episode digitized that we got on tape, because I was so worried that nobody would do that. And I get the feeling I'm probably the only person that has done it. And I've been trying to kind of like really just for prosperity, because I don't want that. They're too good. They even had a different intro. They were rebranded. You had Action Force on there. It's just like, I love it so much. I love the fact that we have this little niche element of GI Joe, and I don't feel like ownership of it, obviously, but I feel just really close to it, and it's awesome.
It's interesting. I think it's important for Joe fans in the States to know about all of these differences, because a lot of the time when I'm doing a video on a G.I. Joe toy, and if it's one of my originals, it has Canada stickers on it.
Nice.
G.I. Joe, luckily in Canada, they still called it G.I. Joe. They still called it the real American hero, even though we were in Canada. But the one thing they couldn't let go by was the American flags in the United States. So all of our stickers said Canada and included the Canadian flag, which as a kid, I knew exactly why that was. Even as a little kid, I understood I'm in Canada and the government is stepping in and going, well, wait a second, we don't want you, basically advertising.
Propaganding,
yeah, something like that. I don't know if you can use that word for kids' toys for G.I. Joe, but yeah, I got it, and it was fine too, because G.I. Joe is all about being patriotic, and I thought that was cool. That's be patriotic about whatever country you're in. So Egypt should have Egyptian stickers on their G.I. Joe toys.
Yeah.
That's all cool, but a lot of people will comment and go, "What's with the Canadian flag? What's with the Canadian stickers?" And I think it's good to educate people and to say G.I. Joe was worldwide, but there were little tweaks here and there. So in the UK, it was Action Force and Full Force and Yo Force, Go Force.
Force. But you're totally right with that. And I was quite fortunate as a kid, because I went to the US when I was about 8 years old. It was the first time I went to the States. It was 89. Mom and dad holiday with them. Went to see our friends in Vegas, and while we were there, we go to toy stores and what have you. And it was like, what is this beautiful thing I'm seeing, where it's just a wall of G.I. Joe figures that should have Action Force written on them and all this kind of stuff. I don't remember as a kid where I started realizing that G.I. Joe was what it was actually called in the US. I don't know, because I had other friends that went to the States and their dads brought them toys back, or when they were working overseas or something, and they would say like, oh, it's called G.I. Joe in the US, and we were like, that's weird. And then we'd watch the VHS cartoon, and you'd see G.I. Joe written on the Mauler, or like on the Silver Mirage, or the the motorcycle, and you'd be like,
so they didn't put a little floaty action.
No, you would still get G.I. Joe on the vehicles.
I'm surprised you didn't see a finger and a thumb holding like an actual scroll on a piece of paper, just on the cheap.
They just paid some guy to go to every household where it was being watched and stand in front of the screen with that every now and again. But no, it was And another thing that happened while I was in the UK, we would get import toys to certain stores, and there was a pulverizer once in a store in it was either Manchester or Birmingham. I can't remember which. I think it was Birmingham, and we were in this store, and I see this G.I. Joe pulverizer, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. I really want that. But went ahead, got it. And it was this is back in the day. This is like when I'm a kid. Get home, look at it, and I'm like, there's something. I just thought it was like a new design, not new design, but like there was something not quite right about it, or not quite. Something was standing out to me. I open it up, and lo and behold, I see Canada stickers. I see there was a it was the Sergeant Slaughter leaflet where he was wearing the winter jacket, and it was like a mail away leaflet for the vehicle drivers and some other stuff. And I'm kind of like, why is it like, why is that in French? Why is that like got Canada written? Why is that a Canada? But it didn't really dawn on me, and I didn't really notice. I just thought it was a vehicle from Canada. Then that's what it was in the storyline, if you know what I mean. And then later on you realize, oh sugar, they had Canadian stuff in Canada, they had UK stuff in the UK, and the South American stuff blows my mind with the amount of stuff that goes on around there in the figures. Fun School India, Fun School Russia, it's all over the place.
Fun School is basically what I wish they would come out with today, because it's not practical to wish that they brought out exactly what we had in the 80s. Those days are gone unless you have a DeLorean with a flux capacitor on it. You ain't getting that quality of plastic, paint, paper, everything. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And bringing it back to the club a little bit, so I've got the anniversary figures behind me, which are pretty good. Like they're different materials.
Yeah.
They're a little bendy, so that they don't break as well, even though they still break. But the actual card is nice and sturdy. It's got a nice shine to it. The actual packaging is nice. The last few club figures I got, and I was just rearranging this stuff today, it feels like it's half as thick, and it's all warping just from hanging on a peg, warping all by itself. So
I had so many issues. I had so many issues with the club and the figures, not just in like recent years, but like for like ongoing. Because when I was in the UK, I was a member of the club, so I'd have to have the stuff shipped out, and for obviously you get it much later. But when I would get it, I'd open the cardboard container, pull them out, and one of them would be off the card. Two of them might be off the card, just like the glue had gone, or there was issues with like
one looked like with a frostbite.
Yeah,
and I've never had that with a G.I. Joe figure ever, dating all the way back to '82. I've never had the glue come off, but
it's nuts,
one of those club cards, yeah.
And sometimes like it looked like it had been burned, like kind of like that like ripple effect where it hadn't quite fused to the card or something, so it was off the card but not.
I see that on the knockoffs for Transformers, like that burning effect. So
I know this happened, I would imagine, about 12 or 13 times in figure subscription services overall, out of all of them. And it got to the point where I think they thought I was not lying, but you'd always get, initially it was like, we'll do whatever we can to sort it out. We'll send it out. Don't worry. Sent me a new one, sorted. And that happened maybe 2 or 3 times. And then they got to the point where they were just too fed up with that. And they would then get me to send it back to them. And I'm like, you want me to send it back to you?
Yeah.
Pay it out of my pocket, and then this was the thing. We had this kind of back and forth where I was like, I want to be paid back for it.
Yep.
So, and this is God's honest truth. I was waiting for, I sent them an email saying, how do you want to do this? Do you send, do you want to do, is it like a wire transfer? Is it like a PayPal thing? And then a couple of weeks later, I get a letter in the post with $12 in it. 12 United States dollars in cash in the envelope. And I'm like,
what the hey?
Because I sent them a receipt and told them what the conversion rate was. And so that is what they owed me. In fact, no, they owed me more. It was 12 something, but obviously I just got $12. And so I'm like, what is this? This is crazy. And I even sent them an email back saying, like, this is not common business practice. Like, I'm not saying you should treat me with any differently than you treat anyone else. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you should treat me like an actual customer of a product that is faulty, that you've sent to me, and you've asked me to send it back, knowing that I live in the United Kingdom and not the United States. And it was just like, what is going on here? And surprisingly enough, that wasn't enough to make me a club hater at the time. Like, I still, it annoyed me to high heaven, but I still went to conventions every year. I still did it, still did all that stuff and still kind of promoted them and still enjoyed the product to a degree. But, that got to the point where I was like, are you serious?
Yeah.
That happened.
Well, cash in the mail. That's not a bad thing, but it's definitely, in this situation, it's a strange thing. Yeah, I picked up a bunch of the club. I never subscribed to the whole thing because I never saw a full line that I went, I need all of those. I'd always go, I would like 1 or 2 of these. So the free figures, I enjoyed a lot of them. Like Footloose was great. And
Footloose was great.
Was Iceberg another one of them? I can't remember.
Yeah, he had some issues build-wise, but yeah, he was a free figure, yeah. Dr. Mindbender in his winter coat.
So I like those ones. But in terms of, like, buying the whole set, I just didn't want to go through the trouble of selling the ones I didn't want. And then they just kept going up and up and up in value. And I would watch for them on eBay, or Big Bad Toy Store sells them too sometimes. And I miss the days of being able to grab them. I forget what they were like. 25, $30, and I'd bite my knuckle and go, ouch.
Yeah,
That's a lot for one figure, but they're not making the toys anymore. We're lucky to have the club. We're lucky to have these rare few put out on cards. So I was like, I'll pay this astronomical price of whatever it was, $30. And now, $100 for one? Like, no, no way. Doesn't like Arctic Stalker. I would love to have a modern Arctic Stalker. Not for that price.
Yeah.
Same with, I can never remember his name. The pilot of the Phantom. I don't know why I can never remember his name. Well, anyway, whatever his name is. I can't. You just said it and I still can't remember it. You know how many Joe fans don't get that?
We joke a lot, myself and some of the other guys, about how it looks like it's a swear word on his name on his stand, because it's like the Godfather's kind of like censored out, so it looks like it's Joe.
Yeah. But I've snuck that joke into so many reviews, and there's always a bunch of people who always go, well, his code name is whatever his code name. I don't remember what his code name. But whatever his code name is, they write it, and they're like, his code name. Thanks for helping, but it doesn't matter. I can never remember his code name. It doesn't matter how many times I hear it. Anyway, whatever his name is, I really wanted that club figure too, but same deal. I was like, not for that price. No way. So
we've been doing figure subscription figure battles on the full force, kind of like Empire, I suppose I'm going to call it now. But and on that, Adam does the breakdown of the pricing, and we've been looking at it just like in just the 4-ish episodes we've done so far. We've done a 5th, but I haven't finished it yet because for some reason, I say for some reason, I think people stopped taking pictures of their figures because they realized how expensive they were starting to get, because it just goes like that. It is dramatic from the first FSS to the final 12. It's one of the biggest jumps it's almost criminal, really.
For the quality that you get, because it's not like the quality increased.
Like
I said, I've got a bullhorn back here somewhere. This is a big lob. This is another one of the figures that I love that they made them. So
big time.
Very happy that they made them. It's cool to have a big lob, but that ain't the modern thickness of the card. It's just not.
Well, it's not even just like the packaging, but like the actual figures themselves. As you're not getting something new. You're not getting any new tooling in. Yeah. I mean, what was newly tooled in the last 4 FSSs? You could probably count it on one hand what you got new tooling wise.
And that's one of the edicts they had, right? No new tooling. You have to reuse parts, which is fine. But if you're reusing stuff, that should keep your costs down. That's why parts were reused in the first place.
Yep.
In 1982 in G.I. Joe. That's why Mattel reused, over 50% of their parts for He-Man to keep costs down. So that also didn't make any sense to me that they were reusing everything but also charging so much. And because, well, it's low numbers. I don't know. It didn't seem, the prices didn't seem to match up for me for what you were getting.
No, it was a shame, and I must admit the final 12 was a hard pill to swallow when that pricing went up, and I held out for a few days, and usually I'm like, yes, get on it as soon as I possibly can, and just you get in there and get it done and sorted. But for the last couple of FSSs, but more so the final 12, I was like, oh, I want all of them, but do I need those, and do I need this? And the fact that they split it up a little bit and made you choose that, you could have this, and this, you didn't have to get it all at once, that made it a harder choice, because I'm like, well, I want all the Sonic Fighters because they're amazing, and I want all of the Euro Tiger Force, obviously, but I want Coils O'Doom and Black Spider Rendezvous because they were really cool as well. And I'm thinking, and Zartan and the bike and the 3-pack, but I don't really need the 3-pack, and it was just like this horrible
And how much
game. Which with the figures?
Yeah.
I think all in all it was, I think everything bar the 3-pack, which I didn't go for in the end. So Zartan and the motorbike, and then the final 12, I think cost somewhere in the region close to $700.
Which works out to
2.5 trillion UK pounds.
No, but like per figure, what does that work out to?
It was probably up close to about $50, I think.
Wow.
It's like 48. I want to say $48 a figure. I'm probably wrong on that. I mean, one of your viewers or listeners will probably point out what the actual cost was.
Too rich for my blood.
High.
And that's a shame. Well, one of the big reasons why I got into toy collecting, I mean, I started to really get all this stuff 10, 15 years ago when it wasn't that high in price. So I got my Minton box Centurion for $30-$40, and I went, that's a lot, but you know, I always wanted them, and I got a bunch of figures like that. I remember getting King Randor for whatever it was like a fifth of what he is now, and every time I was like, because I was so used to $3 per figure for G.I. Joe, right?
Yeah.
So you know, now that everything is skyrocketed in price, I just look around and I go, I'm so glad I got it when I did. I'd never be able to afford it today, but I'm sad for the people who can't afford it. It's toy collecting. It's plastic. It's not diamonds, gold, or fine china.
Well,
it should be affordable for everybody.
That whole run of that whole kind of G.I. Joe Club thing, especially towards the end, was like super exclusive. Like it just kind of made everything very, you know, you had to be like an elite collector to keep up with it. And that's the sad thing, because the Joe fandom on the whole isn't really built like that. Like, you know, it kind of spreads across all kinds of demographics, the Joe fandom, and you know, not a lot of that demographic has the money to do it, especially like disposable income. Like, I mean, that is like, I'm saying, I struggled with it massively, and I had to really make a decision. Do I really want these? Am I going to get the kind of enjoyment? And it's almost like it's changed my mind a little bit about collecting just recently, where we're kind of, as my wife and I were kind of wondering, you know, where are we going to go from here, where we're in Missouri at the moment, but we kind of want to move away somewhere else, with this gigantic anchor attached to me, which is not Kate, by the way. She's gorgeous. The you know, this anchor of this collection, which is in the US. I mean, it's not even my main collection is at home in the UK, and I still kind of feel that is my home. You know, that's where I was born and raised, and you know, that's where most of my collection is. So it's quite sad that I can't be with it all the time. I talk about it like it's a child, and here in the US, I'm honestly contemplating what am I going to do here. I'm not going to ship it over there. I'm not going to ship the one in the UK over here. Do I just have these two, you know, satellite collections that I very rarely get to enjoy, or do I actually spread the love a little bit and give it to people who, you know, might enjoy it? And that's something that I have been contemplating just recently. You know, there's a thing about like the quality quantity thing. You know, for a while I was buying everything that had a G.I. Joe emblem on it. If it's got G.I. Joe on it, Action Force on it, I'm buying it. I don't care.
When you're starved, you'll take anything.
Exactly.
You'll take a can of tuna and go, oh my god, it's like gourmet. I know the feeling. I bought G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra stuff just for the same reason. I'm like, oh, G.I. Joe. That didn't last long though.
I was working in Toys R Us in the UK at the time, and that was the first time in however many years that G.I. Joe had been on the shelves. And so it was like, what? So I bought all of that as an employee at Toys R Us. In actual fact, this is probably not a good thing to say, to admit to.
Oh, we can cut it. If it's too scandalous,
it's not too scandalous. But when they were all shipped in, we got them early. So, you know, you get that stuff to put out on a certain date. And I went right back in there, cutting the boxes open, checking it all out, like, oh my God, this is amazing. it actually spawned quite a lot of really cool toys, the Rise of Cobra line. The movie was utter grundles, but the actual
putting it lightly.
I'm using my censor words at the moment, so you don't have to bleep much. It was absolute grundles, but the figures, that some of the figures are really good, and we got some good stuff out of it.
Yeah.
We got some garbage out of it, but yeah, we got some good stuff out of it. So I was really happy that it was, I could put it to one side, one of each, put it to one side, vehicles and everything, and be like, I can't wait for this to drop and me to pay for it all.
Do you remember seeing the 25th anniversary figures on the shelf for the first time?
We didn't get 25th anniversary on shelves. I had to get that all on Small Joe's was my crack dealer at that time.
Great
so
website.
I dropped a lot of money on smalljoes.com because of 25th anniversary.
Hey, FYI to any Joe fans listening out here who want to get stands for their G.I. Joes, smalljoes.com, best G.I. Joe stands you will find. If you get the cheap ones from China, the eBay ones, they will break the heels because they are they're the same circumference thickness all the way through. So you'll put the Joe on, the pegs are too big and they will crack. The Small Joe ones are tapered ever so slightly. You can barely notice it, but they're tapered and it's a softer plastic. So they're snug. They hold securely. I've never cracked a single heel using Small Joes. They even have those little 4 feet underneath, which are so classy.
Yeah.
So just wanted to give them a shout out because those are the best stands you can find for those.
Small Joe's are still doing good things. I got all my O-rings from Small Joe's. They always do like little bags of them, like 50 of them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And of course, Small Joe's is the home of Raging Spoon's complex building system, which is freaking awesome, I have to add. I feel like I'm doing loads of selling shout outs on here.
Well, when the stuff is good, you want to share, right? That's what we used to do as kids. Hey, you got to check this out.
Check this out. I mean,
only a jerk, to use an American term, a jerk
Bum.
would be all about, no, I must not let anybody know. But what is that for people who aren't familiar with that?
So the complex building system are like floors and wall kind of pieces that you can kind of use to build big, complex kind of dioramas and stuff like that. Raging Spoon is the guy behind that, and they're just great. He's got a second series of things coming out soon, which is going to be new walls and new floors, but also like gun emplacements and cameras and all sorts that you can kind of plop on there, and computers, and it's all 3 3/4, perfect for 3 3/4. I mean, you can actually use it for 6-inch, but he has doorways and windows that are kind of perfect for the 3 3/4 stuff.
Yeah, you could use that on the flag, especially for all the people who are doing the ultimate upgrade of the USS flag with the extra under deck. You can throw that stuff in there, and also to throw out another shout out, 3D Joes. We love 3D Joes.
Carson, yeah.
Carson.
Shout out to Carson.
But gun runners. Marauder gun runners. Awesome, too, for all sorts of G.I. Joe diorama stuff, as well as weapons and figures and stuff.
There are so many shout outs we could give right now. I mean, the community is so good.
There aren't that many Joe, I think you go over to Transformers and you've got all of those big third-party companies doing the unofficial Masterpiece, plus all of the customizers and repro guys, and there's just so much of it. And then you go over to the Joe community and there's 2 or 3 or 4 guys doing it, so that's why it's, we all feel so compelled to go, oh, do you know about these guys? Do you know about those guys? Because we don't want them to stop because they're doing such an amazing job.
Yeah, totally.
Earlier you were, what was the word you were using for the full force?
Grundles.
No, the full force, the word you could use is the universe, the full force universe.
Oh, Empire.
You were using Empire, yeah. WWE likes to use the term universe to refer to their fans and their whole, it's like Marvel universe. So the full force universe, I think that has a nice ring to it. The FFU?
That's brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant, and I'm definitely using that from now on. I'm stealing that from you.
Would you? So this seems to be a recurring phrase I'm using on Toy Guys Talking. We're coming up on an hour, so just to I guess to close, I wanted to ask you about Big Ben.
Okay, yeah.
He is an Englishman G.I. Joe.
Yes. I believe Scottish, I want to say.
Well, I guess we have to look that up right now.
I'm doing it quick. I just want to be totally on point with that because for some reason he was definitely like SAS Scottish in. No, you're right. It's Burford, England. He's English. Yeah.
So Big Ben, Englishman.
Yep.
Do you have him?
I do. Yes, I do have. I've Big Ben carded, and I believe I have a loose one at home, and also got the modern one as well. Yeah.
So with there being so few actual genuine English Joes, not to mention like non-American Joes, most of them are American. He's a real American hero.
Yes.
I think there's one Canadian. He's French. I think it was Backstop maybe from Montreal.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool that Big Ben is an actual English Joe. And, you know, for kids who grew up on Action Force, they thought all of them were English. But I think it's a pretty nice tip of the cap to the people in the UK that they actually got an official English G.I. Joe.
Yeah, it was neat. I mean, obviously with Action Force, we had some, like Tunnel Rat's still from New York. He's always from New York, even the Euro exclusive Tunnel Rat and the Action Force Tunnel Rat that came out as well. But yeah, we had, and the other thing is like we've got characters that came out in '85 on a Palatoy card that were then released again in as a different version of the character, like Roadblock. He was from the French Congo in the Palatoy version, and then he's from, I want to say like. Oh, goodness me. I've been doing this recently, going through all of the file cards to find out the actual dates, because myself and Brian Hickey are working on a project to highlight that the birthplaces of some of these Action Force characters. So that's quite a nice, good timing. You asked me that. But yeah, I was really happy when I saw Big Ben on card because I actually saw him hanging up when I was in the States in 92, I want to say. I think it was 92. And yeah, got him on card from the US and was blown away that there was an Englishman on the team. It was crazy. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I just wanted to do one little quick thing, and I want to shout out our patrons on our show. Just really to say, like, thank you so much for supporting us. Like, it's crazy. When I started it only a month ago, like the Patreon thing, I was really doing it just so that we could get more stuff out there because I was having all these ideas that I wanted to do some cool things with. I really wanted to do this thing called the Full Force Fan Club, and I didn't know how to really go about doing it. My wife actually suggested Patreon. I knew about it, but she was the one that said, just do Patreon. And she did some research and showed me like what it would take to do it. And I was like, actually, this is really, really cool. And like, I really love Patreon as a format. It works so well. Big shout out to those guys.
I joined up with Patreon a while back and didn't know what to expect. I had heard about it. And I am so blown away by it. It is so awesome. It's so much more than before you use it, the impression that you have of it. It is totally that fan club feeling, and just a really good community, good brothers and good sisters, I always call them. I'm not big enough to be considered a universe like the FFU.
I don't know. You've been doing some of my favorite things recently. Like I'm always sharing your
it's more of
images.
It's more of a tribe than a universe. But we've
got to work out the lettering for that.
I've met some of the best people, the nicest people through Patreon, and it's so much more than just, hey, come and support what I do. They're friends. I consider them all friends, and I love them dearly. Because they're just so positive, upbeat. They just love to have fun, and they contribute too. So that's the one thing I never expected to happen with Patreon. I figured Patreon would be some other place where I could keep creating things and offering it to, you know, extras for these people who go above and beyond. And what ended up happening was they started to contribute as well. So they contribute, you know, pictures of their collections and beautiful custom things that they're working on too on the community wall. They create friendships. You know, people are becoming friends because of joining the same Patreon and interacting with each other. So I don't like using the term safe space because it's usually used in like a kind of smarmy, sarcastic manner. But,
Yeah.
there's so much that goes on in the world today where people want something for nothing. And they feel that they are entitled to everything that their heart desires for, nothing is another.
Zero.
The big donut hole. And how dare you ask for anything in return? So, I don't ask for much on my Patreon. There are a lot of extras and perks for just the $1 tier. But I think it's amazing that so many people join and come in, and there's never any negativity. There's never, you don't get that, and I'm sure you get that with your podcast too, the nitpicking.
Yeah.
Where everything, all of the positives are ignored, and that one thing. There are a few people out there who I guess have taken on this Simon Cowell persona of the American Idol judge. So you see, it's just like American Idol, or wherever it originated. What was it called in the UK?
Pop Idol.
Pop Idol. There you go.
Pop Idol. Yeah.
But you hear just the most amazing performance, beautiful performance, and nitpick that. You got to change that. You got to change that. And I think all the shows like that have come out have, that old expression, everyone's a critic.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to be a large part of the way people consume anything, watch anything. They, instead of being able to sit back and watch it and be taken on a ride, enjoy a story,
maybe even enjoy it. Yeah.
Be told a story and just, vicariously enjoy the story through the characters in the story. Instead, now it's assume the position. And so many people watch things like this.
Yep. That's really scary.
Yeah. So that's another huge positive of Patreon. I never get the impression that people go on Patreon and view the exclusives on there like that. They just, they enjoy everything, and every message is always
positive. It's always exciting. It's always like they're feeling that same buzz that you're feeling creating this stuff. And I love that. And I'm not saying that we create something special. I think that we put a lot of hard work into what, I put a lot of hard work into what the show eventually becomes. But I always went through the same thing when you kind of mentioned it with that thing of, a lot of people feel like they're entitled to something for free. And I almost had that mindset that I didn't think the full force should be, people shouldn't be paying for it necessarily. But then I realized, I'm putting 24 hours a day into this podcast. I'm doing news bursts, which when we talk about the news bursts, people I think we just record it and then it's up there and done. It's like Justin and I have to get together usually around his kind of schedule, which is later on in the evening. We record quickly, and then after that I edit the audio, I put it in a video and edit the video, and about 4 hours later I can post it, and then the upload takes ages. So it gets to about 2 or 3 in the morning, and then it's at least I got that one episode done. And that's just one 5 to 8 minute episode for a news burst that we want to get out as fast as we possibly can, and it takes ages to do it. And then the main audio episode, I mean, if you're talking shortest is probably about 2 hours, longest is, like I said, 8 to 10. Good. But we don't do that anymore. It's more going to be between 2 and 4 is the kind of longer main audio episode. So that just takes a month of solid work in and around everything else to get done. And that's before the card art battles, the FSS figure battles, the Disorder of Battle I do with Brian, the comics bursts I do with Paddy and Brian, the numerous stuff that I pump out on the Facebook page. So I got to the point where I'm actually, this is kind of almost my job now, and that's on top of freelance work I have to do in order to pay bills. So it's damn, this kind of needs to happen now. I need to get something from this, even if it's just to let the podcast take care of itself. Do you know what I mean?
And you'll always have those people who just simply don't understand the way it's supposed to work. I would post things on my YouTube channel and various social media saying, there's a new exclusive up for the Patreon tribe. Check it out. And occasionally there's going to be people who don't like that, who aren't contributing, and they say, that sucks. You should give everything for free. And they don't understand it's a thank you.
Yeah.
It's a show of gratitude. It's a sign of appreciation. And the reason, see, you can't just dismiss people as jerks. Jerk, idiot, jerk. We need to stop name calling, and we need to start really we need to start doing this and really scrutinizing the people who behave that way. And when I cross my arms, I lean forward and I really scrutinize the people who go, you should give everything for free. I go, you don't have an attitude of gratitude. That's your problem. They would get it. And most people do get it. And they just don't say anything.
Yeah.
Or they go, I wish I could support. And I go, thank you for, the thought.
The thought counts. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is the thought that counts. But the people who go, well, you've excluded me. You don't have an attitude of gratitude. If you did, you'd understand why this thing works the way it does. And it works so beautifully. And it's also good to remember that the people who are supporting on Patreon are supporting things like new equipment, new lights, new cameras. Cameras don't last forever. It's not just about
cracking blankets.
Give me money for toys. That's not what it's about. It's about when a light burns out. Those bulbs aren't cheap. Like when you're shooting stuff, the reason a lot of the stuff on all of these channels that review things, it looks so good is because it's professional lighting. Yeah. It's not just a 60-watt light bulb.
Yeah.
Or a flashlight or your phone flashlight app.
Exactly.
It's really nice lighting rigs, and those bulbs don't last forever, and they're expensive to replace. So it's to replace that stuff. It's for new cables that get worn out. It's equipment. It's a constant expense, and that's really, really awesome that people are supporting it. Just like people support corporations when they go see their big blockbuster summer movies. No one ever thinks of it that way, but when you're going to buy a ticket for Avengers Endgame, you're supporting a corporation so that they can keep doing what they're doing. Avengers Endgame exists because of the people who supported the Walt Disney Corporation by going to buy tickets for Infinity War and for Captain Marvel and for all of that other stuff.
Yeah.
They supported the corporation so that they could continue, and I just love that the people at Patreon have created, Patreon so that people can do that on a smaller scale too. So it's not just corporations and universes, but also little tribes.
I love the FFU. I'm so using that. It's like a double FU, isn't it? It's like
that is what it. You should call it the double FU.
Yeah, it's a double FU. It's like an FU, but way more full.
Yeah.
In its force.
Double FU.
If anything has come out of this wonderful little chat, and I love this. This has just been so much fun just to shoot the breeze. Notice I said breeze and not another word that could have been bleeped. It's just been an absolute pleasure, man. I really appreciate you having me on. And and this is another thing. Like the community's great. And it's like people have been extending like olive branches and same thing. Like I've been saying, like, I really want to get on your show, or I really want to do this, or I really want to talk to you about this. I'm doing an Action Force comic episode crossover with Talking Joes, who is a two guys out of the UK called Chief and Ben, who have just started their podcast, well, in the last, a couple of months or whatever. And they talk about the G.I. Joe comic, as in the American Marvel G.I. Joe comic. And so he approached me to do the Marvel UK one. And I'm like, absolutely. It's like, I can't wait. And just the excitement that it brings to work with other people that do this stuff is absolutely awesome. I love it so much. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for donating, for giving your time so that we could chat, and so that my audience could listen, and also for the people who aren't aware of the full force, the double FU, they can check it out. Now I'm always seeing these little pop-ups in my YouTube channel. They have suggestions for how to grow your channel and how to be successful. And I'm not into that stuff at all. Like you'll never hear me go, I'm working on growing my channel. I got to grow my channel. You'll never. It's just not. It's not how my mind works. I don't worry about it. Que sera, whatever will be, will be.
We're going to Wembley.
That's right.
Oh, sorry.
The subscribers will be what they are. The views will be what they are. And yeah, I have a little bit of influence on that stuff, but I don't sweat it too much because sometimes you can't control it, and there's no point in really worrying about it. But I keep seeing these suggestions about collabs. Collabs will grow your channel. And I thought, well, aside from all of that, everyone's going collab crazy because they want to grow their channels. I thought, well, this is just a cool way to chat with people who love what I love.
Exactly.
Because there are so many people who don't love what I love. I mean, especially in my town. And it's been...
Not many Visionaries fans.
Well, not many fans of anything in the town that I'm in. I've got a couple of buddies locally who love Joe and, Transformers and whatnot. But for the most part, after childhood, most people moved on and they never got back into it. So there's people who see the collection and they go, whoa! Yeah. But, they're not passionate about it. So that's what I love about this whole Toy Guys Talking idea is it's unscripted. You were asking me before, should we do any prep? No prep. Nothing. No.
Zero prep.
It's off the cuff. It's organic, that word that they like to use. It's
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely great, yeah.
And it's the type of collab, that word. That I like to do. Just easy breezy and fun and not just overly manufactured.
And stuff. Totally.
But for the people who, I know there is a lot of viewers who really love to see these team ups, because in so many movies and even the comic you talked about earlier, the Revolution comic, where people love crossovers. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are really excited to see me, little old me, and the double FU man, talking to each other. So I think just to savor that crossover moment, we should just sit here and just
soak it in.
Okay.
I've soaked my chair, unfortunately.
I'm a little damp. I'm a little damp too. So
these lights, like you have, like you were saying about the kind of lighting and stuff. I have 3 huge, frigging filming lamps on massive tripods, and it is like the surface. It's like being on the surface of the sun.
Yeah.
It's unreal right now.
It'll cook you after a while. But Chris, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's been so much fun. Thank you, mate.
Looking forward to having you back again. So much more stuff to talk about. Geez, we talked about Visionaries for quite a bit of it, and just scratched the surface of G.I. Joe. Maybe next time we can talk about Inhumanoids for 45 minutes.
Oh hell yeah! We've done another. We did an episode on Humanoids as well, and on Cops.
One of my favorites.
Loads, yeah.
So definitely check out the Double FU, the Full Force podcast. How often do you put those up?
Oh my goodness. So the main audio episode is now once a month. We news bursts whenever there's news, comics bursts every week, and then Disorder of Battles every 3 weeks. So there's something always going up in a week kind of span.
And that's on iTunes. I found it on Stitcher, iTunes, Podbean,
and then our Facebook page. I also post the videos on Facebook as well. And
I thought there was a new app called. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's a new app. It's a bit weird. And of course, we post stuff on Patreon. We have early access to the main audio episode for 2 days, and then we do bonus content. I've just been doing the making of the Full Force once a month, which is just talking about lighting and microphones and how the setup works and all that kind of jazz. So yeah, lots and lots of different things.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Chris, and thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you'd like to be a guest on Toy Guys Talking, if you have a channel of your own or a podcast or some kind of, if you're one of these amazing toy photographers on Instagram, then shoot me a message and we can be two Toy Guys Talking. Thanks a lot. Until next time, Nerdmas stay and
Full
force!
force!